The National Pension Commission has approved the issuance and immediate implementation of the guidelines on accessing retirement savings account, that's the RSA balance, for payment of equity contribution for residential mortgages by RSA holders. According to PENCOM, the approval was in line with Section 89, subsection 2 of the Pension Reform Act 2014, which allows RSA holders to use the portion of the RSA balance towards the payment of equity for residential mortgage. Well, to help us understand how this would affect you and if you can really access this, when we look at the realities in Nigeria, we have Davida, Echetabu, Certified Wealth Manager, joining us in the studio. Hi, Davida. Good morning.
Hi, Annie. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. Well, I think there's been a lot of rejoicing since this news broke out. I think it was on Thursday or Friday. Checking the market, even the mortgage stocks got some attention.
After all.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Yeah, but let's look at the reality, because in Nigeria we see a lot of good policies, good pronouncements, but when it comes to accessing it, we see another thing. This is not new in a lot of countries.
No, it isn't.
It's not new. How realistic is it for anybody who has pension? I mean, sometimes you wonder when you're going to access this pension, because for decades you're just working and you get your notification, oh, your pension has been deducted for this month, but you don't know when it's going to be useful to you. How realistic is this workability of it?
Okay, so on a lighter note, we will access our pension sometime just before Jesus comes. But that being said, it is workable. It is workable because I would like to first of all say that we have seen evidence, at least from the National Pension Commission. We're all on this contributory pension scheme. Pensioners, retirees are getting paid. The process is working. People are getting paid. So this is just, how will I put it, to make it even a more valuable endeavor to the average workforce, the contributors like you and I. In terms of workability, interestingly, late yesterday evening, the guidelines, the more detailed guidelines, was released by the National Pension Commission, and it's on their website for whomsoever may be interested in going to get more details there. And it's quite practical. Yes, I imagine that there would be some initial hiccups, but for everybody who meets the criteria,
which is that you've been contributing for at least 5 years.
Yes, 60 months, 5 years. Both employer and employee portions. That you are also not a retiree. Retirees are exempted. That's pensioners are exempted. Another set or category of people who are exempted would be people who have less than 3 years to retirement as well. But if you are working, self-employed, you are eligible to participate in this, even though you may have taken 25% before because maybe you stopped working for whatever reason and decided to go into your own endeavor, you are still eligible to participate going by the guidelines. So it is actually quite available to everybody. Even micro pensions isn't left out, but again, micro pensions started in 2019. For them to access it, it means their own access will be in the future, around about 2024.
Because you have to have contributed for 5 years.
Yes, 5 years.
All right, so how it works is you go to your pension or you go to your mortgage first?
Okay, so you go window shopping and look for a house that you like within your budget.
Please remember, exactly. I wanted to say, please remember your budget when you're looking for that house.
I know, right? So you go window shopping, you find a house that you like, and you get an offer letter from the seller, the owner of the house. You take that document to the primary mortgage institution, that's the mortgage lenders. That's what they're referred to as in the guidelines released. They would get that document from you. They would do due diligence. When they have confirmed that everything is kosher, everything is genuine, then they would let the client, you and I know, we would go to our PFAs, we would get a copy of our RSA statement for the purpose of providing it to them to make sure that the 25% that you would be allowed to withdraw for purposes of equity would be sufficient to meet that need. Where it is insufficient, the client, being the RSA holder, would be expected to pay the difference to the account of the mortgage lender institution, after which they would process, they would give you an offer letter for mortgage, which the client will now present to their PFA. PFA will do the due diligence, make sure the documentation calculations are right. The client, of course, would have filled an application form, and then the process of payment and all that will happen. I would like to say at this point, though, that even though the responsibility has been put in black and white for the mortgage lenders to do due diligence and get a valuation, at the end of the day, the primary stakeholders are the clients. So people are also meant to, do due diligence and not just go and get bamboozled by somebody who's trying to sell off something that doesn't exist to them.
So due diligence in this period is ensuring that that property is genuine and it's up for sale, the papers are right, to check with the government, to be sure you're not getting swindled and all of that. I believe that's what due diligence is about.
I would like to also believe that. And that's where I think the mortgage lending institutions would need to definitely have collaborative relationships, because their primary capacity is not checking out houses and checking whether they're on dry land or on their water and all that. So I'm sure that they're going to have to partner with a lot of real estate, type institutions, just to make sure that the diligence is done appropriately. And there I have noted a lacuna, because there is no timeline stated in the guideline for that due diligence. And I really honestly don't know that there can be a guideline, because what may take one property easier for, verification and validation to happen may be a bit more tricky with another one. But those are things that will happen.
So do you think that the mortgage would want to take this extra burden?
Yes.
Because it brings more markets to them?
Absolutely.
So more work, more services, more markets.
That sector has been
more
quiet. Has been pretty quiet. I'll use quiet, And so even though this is going to task them, but I'm sure that they have done the numbers. They have looked at what's the cost benefit, and they're not going to do it by themselves. They would subcontract, I imagine. A lot of detail would be provided as, the practice of this guideline goes into action. But off the top of my head, I imagine that they would be doing a lot of partnering. So that industry, the real estate industry, is getting a much needed vamp.
At least getting their securities active. I think that's what's good for them. So they have to embrace it.
Yes.
But I want to clarify now. An individual goes window shopping or shops for a house, gets a property of a budget of 100 million, for instance. So what do you consider when you're looking at the budget and the 25%? Because the 25% I believe is for the equity for the first one. That means you're going to have to be servicing until the end. So
absolutely.
You also have to take that into consideration. I think there's some conditions so that you won't get mortgage that's how many percent more than what you're earning monthly, so that we're sure you can afford to service whatever you have to service every month.
Yes. Okay, so first of all, the deal is nobody will get more than 25% of their RSA balance towards equity. Now, let's assume that someone goes shopping for a house. Rule of thumb would be they know what they can afford. There is no need going to purchase a 100 million naira house when you know that your salary and your RSA balance cannot even come close. So equity, I even think, is the smaller part of the conversation. It is the meeting up with the monthly mortgage obligations. That is where the responsibility comes in, and that's what a lot of times as a certified wealth manager, we have these conversations on financial planning. So it's not just because you can afford to buy something. How many things are sacrificing themselves to meet that? Which also goes in line with what it is, you just mentioned. Can you meet up? So you could have done the first fell swoop, but every day, every month, are you going to run into trouble after a while? There's a part of the guideline that refers to when that a couple who are both working can decide to do a joint application, and then, of course, it also must take into consideration that life happens. So the guideline goes ahead to say that should one of the spouses pass on, the other person has the right to continue if they can afford it. Because those are realities. Two people were footing something before, so if the person cannot afford it, then they would need to stop that process, and the person would need to start afresh.
That's like refinancing.
There you go.
Debts.
There you go. So a lot of that, again, would be addressed in more detail as time goes on. I'm sure there'll be subsequent sub-guidelines to address these peculiarities.
Yeah, and then the mortgage association, I think they have to come out to talk to members of the public on how they intend to implement this. And then also, how long will it take to go from this document and paperwork and conversations to when people can actually access it? Yeah.
Okay, so with regards to the mortgage association, we expect that a list of mortgage lenders would be published very soon. I am certain that there are conversations going on with CBN and PENCOM right now to make sure that that is addressed. But that being said, I visited both the CBN website and the NDIC website, and between both of them, there are roughly 40 plus primary mortgage institutions. So I'm sure that conversations are happening to make sure that the mortgage rates, the mortgage process and all that, is a bit more efficient and considerate to people, because it is.
But all of this, I guess, would be your area of strength, where pension now becomes even more important.
Yes.
Because now it can actually give you a house.
Actually, right? Are we talking about Aso Rock? Okay, so yes, but this is also something that is going to make people who have been laid back about pensions to do something about it. Because look, at the end of the day, you and I just want to know that no matter what falls apart, we need the roof over our heads to be secure. Whatever we do inside our house behind closed doors, it's up to us. But we need to make sure that we have that safety of we own our own houses and we avoid any form of unnecessary embarrassments, over the course of time.
Over the nearest future. Well, thank you so much. I know this is an ongoing conversation. We're going to follow up with the Mortgage Association, with PENCOM, the parties concerned, and hope that they will respond and come to tell us their plan and how soon.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Davida Echetabu, a certified wealth manager, for your time and your findings, sharing your findings this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're going to go to the market now. Yesterday, I was really happy to be the one on the market to give that fresh news at least, that the market regained, even if it's just temporal. I always tell Will, I'll be the one to bring the good news, and I was glad to bring that last night. I hope I'm not disappointed today. I hope that investors will continue buying the dip, and we would have at least a little bit of positive at the close of trade.